We are live. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are live. And this morning on Mad Talk Live, we're going to get into discussing 5 important tips that's going to help you to have a clear understanding what true, authentic, real manhood is about in your life. And we're starting right now. Praise the Lord, everyone. Welcome to Man Talk Live. I'm your host, Walter Strong, where we share helpful tips to help you to raise the standard of manhood in your life so that you can be a great husband, a devoted father, and a man of integrity who serves God and serves your community. And so, if you're new here this morning, let me know in the chat where you're watching me from. Give me a hashtag Team Live if you're watching the replay this afternoon or in the evening or whatever time zone that you're in. Give me a hashtag Team Replay in the comment section. And as we said in our opening, this morning, we're going to be talking about 5 important tips on helping you to have a clear, true understanding of what real, authentic manhood should be in your life. And so, without further ado, hey, let's get into the content. Grab a pen, grab a pad. It's time to go to work here on Man Talk Live. So glad to be back in the saddle. So glad to be back here on the mic live with you, with the live audience, the Man Talk Live community, and the replay crew as we get into this discussion on what real, authentic manhood should be and look in your life. And as we get into this discussion, this is going to be a 2-parter. So we're going to discuss these first 4 tips. And then on Wednesday night at 9 p.m., we're going to get into part 2 of this discussion of what real, authentic manhood should look like in your life. And tip number 1, how should real, authentic manhood look in your life and in my life? It should look simply, we as men being who have clarity in our life. We should have clarity in our life. We should have clarity about our identity of who we are as a person. We should have clarity about in our manhood. We should have clarity in terms of our purpose and our talents and our gifts in life and what it means to be a man in life. We should have clarity in our life in being a real and an authentic man. Well, you see, we are living in some times, unfortunately, where it's very challenging. It's very tough for a lot of people. In particular, it's really tough for a lot of men in these times where we're seeing thousands upon thousands of people losing their jobs, losing their employment, where they've been with companies anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 years. And now to have to end up losing their jobs because of layoffs, because of cutbacks, or simply downsizing, or even, unfortunately, sometimes being fired. As men, we sometimes can identify our identity tied by what we do and not who we are. We get our identity tied in by our occupation. We get our identity of who we are based on a 9 to 5 or a company that we've been working for over 20 years and only to be let go and not to get a gold watch and not get a severance package, and now having to go back into the job industry, into the job market, and now we're kind of lost. We don't really have a clear understanding of who we are anymore because we pulled our identity based upon what we did and what we were doing. Or for those of us that are still working, we're pulling our identity based on our occupation. You know, if you've worked for the last 10 to 20 years in IT and in technology, and then now that's gone, and now you have to move with the cheese because your cheese has been moved. If you've ever read the book by Spencer Johnson about how cheese represents change in life and how people have to go back into the maze of life to find new cheese. Well, if your identity is tied to that, you feel lost. You feel confused. You feel confused and lost. And as a result, if you are confused as a man, then unfortunately, the confusion that you have in your life, if you don't get the clarity about having vision and purpose for your life, then how can you now lead a wife, a spouse who you're married to? How can you lead your family when you are in a place of confusion? You are in a place where you lack clarity. And so having clarity in your life is a very important tip to walking in real, authentic manhood. So now the question then becomes, how do I get that? Now that I understand that my job is not tied to my identity, now that I understand that my occupation is not tied to my manhood, now that I understand that, me being on YouTube as a content creator, because of the lack of views and subscribers I've not obtained in a 6 months to a year period because of a goal that you had, how do I now get the clarity? You go back to the one who first gave you life, who gave you the ability to breathe this morning, who gave you the ability to get up and to put your feet on the floor, the one who gave you the ability to turn on your tablet or your smart or iPhone to watch me live this morning. That's God. He's the one who breathed into you the breath of life. He's the one who gave you the activity of your limbs. He's the one who clothed you in your right mind. He's the one. I want you to think about a manufacturer, a manufacturer that creates and makes things. Like let's take the auto industry, like Ford. Ford, Ford manufacturing created cars. They created trucks. They created SUVs and all types of vehicles that can serve a purpose for people in society to be able to get from point A to point B in a more efficient way versus the way things used to be in the past. But if you've ever had an issue with a Ford vehicle or whatever vehicle that you have, do you go to GE Electric, who creates appliances such as stoves, refrigerators, or microwaves, to find out what the key issues are with your vehicle? Now, Tech Troublemaker, who was in the chat this morning, who I want to say, what's up, sir? He says, you are muffled. You are muffled. Is that a little better? Let me say, I am clear. I am clear as mud. Okay, I thought you said I was muffled. Because I'm using a different mic stand this morning. So I want to make sure I'm coming clear. But who's in the chat this morning, he would say I should go to GE and try to fix, why the oil light won't go out when I've gotten the oil change, and I keep getting the sensor saying you need to get the oil replaced. No, we wouldn't go to GE. We wouldn't go to General Electric Tech, but we would go to the dealership. Again, now some individuals would say, depending on the price of what the dealership would charge you to be able to just to kind of look at and find out why the engine light check light is on. That's up to debate. But if you have a good mechanic that you can go to, you would go to your mechanic. Now, if we understand that in the natural, we understand that principle in the natural, then when we lack clarity about our identity of who we are as men, we lack clarity about our sexuality as men, we lack clarity about our purpose in life as men, we wouldn't go to General Electric. We wouldn't go to Ford. We would go to God. We would go to God and we would go to the Bible, where the Bible lets us know in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, that God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. We would go to him. He's the one that breathed into the first man, that he could have the breath of life, and he became a living soul. He's the one that put man in the garden and gave man responsibility to tend and to cultivate the garden. He's the one who gave man responsibility. He's the one who gives us responsibility. We would go to him, and through spending time in the word of God, through spending time in the Bible, we can find clarity about a lot of the questions that we have in our life as men. We say this over and over in this channel, and you will continue to keep hearing it. Being a male is a matter of birth, but being a man is a matter of choice. I'll say it again. Being a male is a matter of birth, but being a man is a matter of choice. And when you lack clarity in your life and you are confused, you have a choice to be able to go to the right source who has the right answers. So that's tip number one. If you want to walk in real clarity and in authority and being a true authentic man, you got to have clarity in your life and get the confusion. We're living in times, yes, it's confusing, it's scary, but despite all of what's going on, we as men, we can't be confused. Our children, our sons and our daughters, look to us as the example of how a man is supposed to conduct and carry himself. Our sons look to us for the guidance of what it means to transition from boyhood into adulthood. Our daughters look to us on how a man is should to treat a woman, so that one day, if they decide to want to settle down and meet someone and to have a family, they have an example of what a real man is. The question that I have for you: are you providing clarity, not just for your life, but are you providing clarity for others? Are you a source who can provide clarity for your own children, for your own spouse? Or are in a household where people are confused? Hmm. I need you to think about that. I need you to think about that. Which let's transition to number two. How do you walk in real authentic manhood? You learn how to handle disappointments in life. Disappointments will come. Disappointments will happen to us all. We sometimes will experience disappointment even in our young childhood years. But through guidance of our mother and our father, we are taught on how to deal with handling disappointments. One of the ways we are taught on how to handle disappointments, when disappointments come, there are lessons that we should be able to take from the experience, so that if we've made certain mistakes, we don't make those mistakes again. If we've had expectations that were unrealistic, or if we had a timetable that unfortunately again was um unrealistic, and was just the expectation of certain things happening by a certain time was just too unrealistic, then when we learn on how to adjust our expectations, when we learn to make the adjustments, we are learning from the disappointments. But when we choose not to learn from our disappointments and how to handle disappointments, what ends up happening is in a child will end up having a temper tantrum. A child will end up having a temper tantrum and start to yell and to scream and to holler to get attention because things didn't go their way and they want attention. Now, no one is perfect, but that does not mean that we can continue to stay and act like children, think like children, have the mentality of like children, and speak and talk like children because we don't like the fact that we've been disappointed. And unfortunately, too many times, men do the same thing. They are in the adult frame of a man, but they still have the mindset of a child. They are in the adult frame of a man, but they still communicate and speak like a child. They don't know how to communicate and speak like an adult. And then when their spouse disappoints them, now they shut down and they don't want to talk to nobody. Is this on? And tech, is this on? Are you hearing me clearly this morning? Handling disappointment means you are willing to take accountability for yourself first. You're willing to accept responsibility. Let me remind you of the 5 pillars of manhood. If you're going to learn how to handle disappointment in life, you have to be willing to reject passivity. You've determined that you are not going to live a passive life. You are going to be a man who engages with God and engages with your family. You are a man who accepts responsibility. You are a man who leads courageously, and you are a man who understands that mentorship and mentoring others, and you getting mentoring from other men who can help you to raise the standard of manhood is a priority in your life. And if you understand this and you embrace this, you will be able to handle disappointment in your life. Hey, if you're getting great value out of this discussion on being able to walk in what real, authentic manhood in your life as a man, do me a favor, click that like button this morning. Those of you who are watching me live, let me know in the chat where you're watching me from. Give me a hashtag team live this morning, which brings me to my next tip. Tip number 3, knowing how to resolve pain in your life. The flip side of this is a man who doesn't walk in real manhood, walk in real authentic manhood, is a man who's always constantly dealing with unresolved pain in his life. Unresolved pain that's affecting him. It's affecting his identity. It's affecting his ability to move forward in life. It's affecting his ability to make wise decisions in life and make good choices in life. When you are dealing with unresolved pain, you can't walk in real authentic manhood. But when you make the quality decision to say you are going to be a person who resolves issues in your life and resolves pain, you're going to walk in real authentic manhood. Now, it's important for us to understand as men, especially even my sisters who may have an important man in your life, whether he is your husband, your father, your son, or brother, that there's a difference between tolerating pain and learning how to resolve pain. Tolerating pain, and I'm going to use the example of a dentist. When you need to go see a dentist, where you clearly know that you've had some issues in your mouth, and you know you need to go see the dentist because you haven't had a cleaning in it's been a minute since you've had a cleaning. And so as a result, you having some issues with your gums, you're having some issues with a particular tooth where there's some possible cavities, or you're having some issues where you're just having some pain in your mouth. But do you go to the dentist? No, you tolerate it. You just get more mouthwash, get some strong mouthwash. You just get you some extra strength toothpaste, and you brush two to three times a day. You use mouthwash 2 3 times a day. And so what are you doing? You're tolerating it. You're not resolving it, but you're tolerating it. That's what we do as men sometimes. That's what we do. And then we wonder why our health is not at the level where it needs to be. We're wondering why we're so tired, why we're so irritable, why we're so frustrated, why we're so difficult to get along with. Why? Because we're tolerating pain instead of learning how to resolve pain. To resolve the pain in that example is to get into the dentist chair. And then you say, well, why won't I get into the dentist chair? It's because maybe you may have a fear of dentists. Maybe you had a very negative experience or saw a family member that had a very negative experience, that that's got you to the point where you don't want to go to the dentist. Now I'm using that as the example, but let's talk about real life. Let's talk about your marriage. Let's talk about your relationship with your children. Let's talk about finances. Let's talk about your career. You could end up having something traumatic happen to you, and as a result, these one of these four areas are suffering because your refusal to want to resolve the pain, to want to resolve the pain. Yes, we are to be strong men. Yes, we have to should be men who know how to persevere through tough and difficult times. But there are times where we have to take a time out and deal with the pain that we're dealing with so that we can get healthy. Now, I'm talking about physical pain. Let's take it another step. What about mental pain? What about the mental pain that you're dealing with? The mental emotions that you're dealing with. You're dealing with damaged emotions. You're dealing with childhood trauma. You're silently frustrated on the inside. You have people all around you in your circle of influence, but you are in pain and you can't find any release. That's because you're tolerating it. You have this fear about opening up your mouth and sitting down with someone and say, I need to talk to someone, because you don't want to present yourself in a vulnerable way where you feel like someone will take advantage of you. But a real man, an authentic man, will not just tolerate pain, but he will be determined to resolve the pain, the mental health issues in his life. What about you? What about you? Those of you who are watching me live, or those of you who are watching the replay. If you're getting great value out of this episode of Man Talk Live, do me a favor, click the thumbs up button. Share this on your favorite social media platform. If you are new to the Real Men Rising YouTube channel, Man Talk Live podcast show, and this is giving you great value, and it's encouraging you how to be a great husband, a devoted father, a man of integrity, then I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Click the alert notification button and be a part of the conversation of real men that's raising the standard, and not just in their life, but in the generations to come. So we've talked about The importance of having clarity, how to handle disappointment. We've talked about resolving pain, which brings me to my fourth point. I told you this is just part one of how to walk in real authentic manhood. Wednesday at 9 p.m. We're going to get into part two. There's four more points that we're going to talk about. But knowing how to deal with loneliness, knowing how to deal with loneliness. We are living in some times as men where through technology, we are the most connected society than we've ever been before. Through our tablets, through our smartphones, our iPhones, we are globally connected to people in more ways than we have ever have been in the last 20 to 30 years. We can connect with people through social media. We can connect with people through text messages, emails. We can connect with, though we are different time zones, connect with individuals in Australia, in London, though we may be in the United States. We are the most connected to people than we've ever been in 30 years. But here's the problem, particularly us as men. Though we have all these connections and we have all this technology and AI technology that that we can use, we feel more lonely in our lives as men because we don't feel like we have someone we can trust, that we can talk to, that we can reach out to. I'll share you a quick story. There was a man who loved and had exotic fish. He was a traveling man who traveled and his job required him to travel from city to city, state to state. But from time to time, when he had the opportunity to get home, he would be able to come home to his lovely apartment and be able to fix himself a nice meal and put on some nice music that he enjoyed. And when it was time for him to wind his day down, he would go over to the fish tank that was close to his bed and he would feed his exotic fish. And his exotic fish, you know, you can only imagine if they communicated, talk to him, he got all a sense of enjoyment and peace and contentment. It felt like he connected with them. Now, did this man have family? Well, in this story, it doesn't really tell you about his family. It just tells you about what was most important to him, his fish. One night, as he was asleep, the fish tank began to malfunction. And as a result of it malfunctioning, now the temperature ended up going up a lot higher than what it was supposed to. And as a result, the fish end up dying because of the temperature being too hot in the fish tank. When the man woke up the next morning and he saw that his fish, his exotic fish, had died, he was devastated. He was devastated. He could only imagine, as he thought, man, the fish tank was only so far from my bed. If the fish had the ability to scream out for help, to cry out for help, he could have helped them. He just, in his mind, he wondered, man, in their final moments as they were screaming out, crying out for help because the temperature in the fish tank got so hot. What's the point of the story? Sometimes as men, we can have people who are the most closest to us, though we are connected through iPhones, tablets, computers, but the people who are closest to us the most, our spouses, our children, our wife is laying next to us, and we are just like those fish. The temperature is so hot, we're screaming out, and no one can hear us, and we are lonely. And as a result, we're confused about what real manhood is about. We're confused about what it means to be a real man, what it means to be a provider, what it means to be a protector for your family, because life has gotten so hot. We are in the fish tank and we are just like those exotic fish, and the temperature has gone up and we're screaming and we feel like no one can hear us. Now, maybe that's just me as a man. Maybe I'm the only one that's gone through that. But the two of you who are watching me live this morning, talk to me in the chat. Have you had those moments where you thought you were like those exotic fish, where you were in the fish tank and the heat got so hot that you were crying out and you felt like no one was hearing you? As a result, you feel lonely. Now, it's also important to understand that there is a difference between being lonely and having time alone, because God never put me and you on this earth to be lonely and to be in a place of loneliness, but He has given us a place and a time where we need to have being alone by ourselves so that we can be able to recharge, refresh, restore, and revive ourselves. Have a moment where we can be to ourselves, where we can collect our thoughts, where we can be able to have a time where we may go for a walk in the neighborhood or go to a local park, or you go out and early in the morning and go fishing at a lake. Having times alone is good, but being lonely where we feel like no one can hear us crying out, screaming, well, because the temperature's gotten so hot, unfortunately, too many men are dealing with that. And if you're going to walk in real, authentic manhood, you have to be willing to learn how to open up and to be able to have real intimacy with another man who can speak in your life. Again, the fifth pillar of manhood, what I call the vision of manhood, is mentorship, where you let someone speak into your life. Or you see another man or another young man who you can speak into their life. You see that they are just like that exotic fish that is crying out in the fish tank, but no, they feel like no one hears them. Hey, if you're getting great value out of this episode of Man Talk Live, click that like button for me. Share this on your favorite social media platform. Let's continue the conversation of what it takes about walking in real, authentic manhood. Text says here, we were not meant to be alone for sure. 100%, sir. I agree. I agree. God never created me and you to be lonely. And you know, it's important to understand that when we do feel lonely, that we are connected first to God. We're connected first to God. Because this channel, Real Men Rising, is a faith-based channel. You're going to hear a lot about the importance about having a relationship with God. You're going to hear a lot about spending time with God and reading the word of God in the Bible, spending time with God by spending time with God in prayer. That's how you are able to deal with the loneliness. You don't deal with the loneliness by having a young woman or a young lady arms in your arms. You don't deal with it that way. Now, if you're married, yes, you do have your wife, but again, there's a part of you that God created you as a man that only he can satisfy. Money can't satisfy it. Jobs and careers can't satisfy it. Having a bunch of children can't satisfy it. But you say, "Oh, I want to have a big family. I want to have a big family. I want to have a lot of children. I want to be a father having a big family so I won't feel lonely." But what happens when the children all grow up and they go to college, they graduate, and they start their own life and their own family? Now you and your wife are on to yourself. You're empty nesters. But now you're sleeping in one room, she's sleeping in the other, and you're still feeling lonely. Only God can deal with that part of loneliness that I'm talking about. Only God can deal with that. Only God can deal with that. Great point, Tech. Great point. Great point. Any other comments? Please put them in the chat. Put them in the chat. You know, we're focused on this channel about helping you as a real man to be a great husband, a devoted father, a man of integrity. Um, I also understand my sisters who watch this channel. You have an important man in your life. That important man could be your husband. That important man could be your father. That important man could be your son. That important man could be your brother. And so it's my prayer, it's my hope that what I share provides you some insight about what's going on in his life so that you can better connect with him. So if he is like that exotic fish that we talked about, that were in the fish tank, you're like that salesman who's traveling and home. You're right there, but he's screaming, but you can't hear him. Sometimes it's true, men and women communicate differently. Our communications are different. How we reach out for help sometimes can be different. Sometimes we as men, and I'm guilty of this too, where my wife can get to talking, and it seems like the things that she's talking about, it comes out almost as if I'm hearing about a lot of issues and drama, but I'm looking to hear, though I'm hearing about the issues and drama, I'm looking to hear, but here's how I'm believing and trusting God, or how this is going to turn around. And then when I don't hear that, it sounds like it's coming out at a bunch of old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And then I turn off. I don't mean to turn off, but I turn off. And then sometimes I can get to talking about something that's important to me, like say YouTube and content creation and being on a camera. And my wife is like, "Uh, didn't you hear anything about, the discussion about finances and bills? And you're talking about your next live stream show and next podcast episode?" So we need to understand that men and women are different, and how we communicate is different. But when we make a concerted effort to be able to bridge the gap there through the language of love, we can be able to have dialect and conversation. And we'll know when the other person isn't hurting, when the other person is in pain. I'm getting off topic. I'm getting off topic. This I'm not for sure if this is connecting with you know with the right audience. So I want to stay on point. So that's the content. That's the content. If you've gotten great value, again, click that like button for me. Share this on your favorite social media platform. And hey, we are only 4 subscribers away um, from 100 subscribers on this new channel. This is actually a second channel that I started. Um, and so just the simple fact to be able to reach 100 subscribers within this first year, that's going to be a great accomplishment for this channel, not just for me, but for you, the audience, because what you said, the first 100 has said that this is valuable content that is needed for men. And so if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. If you know someone who needs this content, and they've been talking to you about the importance of needing this content, share this content with them and tell them subscribe, because we want to continue to speak into the hearts and the life of men. So I don't see any other comments. I want to thank Tech for hanging out with me, and those of you who have been listening, maybe because of what you've been doing, you just haven't been able to have an opportunity to engage in the chat, but you just wanted to listen. That's fine. That's fine. When you have a moment, though, click that like button for me. Click that like for me, and share this. Share this with someone else who needs it. That's it for this episode of Man Talk Live. We're going to get into part 2 of this topic on walking in real, authentic manhood Wednesday night at 9 p.m. So we'll see you then. God bless.